God himself will provide the sheep for the Holocaust. Then the two continued going forward. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Once more.
Be with me, Lord, when I am in trouble. Be with me, Lord, when I am in trouble. You dwell in the shelter of the Most High. Abide in the shadow of the Almighty. Say to the Lord, my refuge and fortress, my God, in whom I trust. Be with me, Lord, when I am in trouble. No evil shall befall you, nor affliction come near your tent. For to his angels he has given command about you, that they guard you in all your ways. Be with me, Lord, when I am in On their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. You shall tread upon the asp and the viper. You shall trample down the lion and the dragon. Be with me, Lord, when I am in trouble. Because he clings to me, I will deliver him. I will set him on high, because he acknowledges my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in distress. I will deliver him and glorify him. Be with me, Lord, when I am in God has called us through the gospel to possess the glory of our Lord Jesus Christ.
The Lord be with you. Reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When he saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he had sat down, his disciples came to him. He began to teach them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the clean of heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Again, on behalf of Father Mark and all of the community here at St. Joseph's, I'd like to welcome all of you to our annual Blue Mass. First of all, many of you may be wondering why we still have our Christmas trees up. And if you're not Catholic, that's a very good question. Many Catholics don't even know that Christmas lasts for 3 weeks after December 25th in the Catholic liturgical calendar. So tomorrow will be the last day of Christmastide, and the trees will come down. But we're in the last moment here of the Christmas season, even though we've been celebrating it for since probably like October 10th or something. We really don't start in the Catholic Church technically until December 24th, Christmas Eve Mass. It certainly helps us with getting out those late Christmas cards, and we get great deals on Christmas presents after Christmas is over. The Blue Mass. What is the Blue Mass? Some of you may be asking. Well, for Catholics, the highest prayer one can offer is the commemoration of Christ's Last Supper and sacrificial passion on Calvary. We call that the Mass. Some Masses are offered for a particular professional calling and color-coded, so to speak, in accord with the attire of that profession. So the so-called White Mass is offered for doctors and nurses. The Red Mass for attorneys and judges. English magistrates in the Middle Ages wore red robes. So the Red Mass for attorneys and judges, and the Blue Mass for police, fire, and emergency personnel. We call you first responders. Generally, you wear blue. Most of you are wearing blue today. And so, I know the sheriffs on duty wear green, but most understand blue to be police and fire. We live in a more threatening world today than in previous generations, perhaps, and so we offer this prayerful Mass each year for those who put your lives on the line for all of us, and in gratitude for your service. We welcome the dignitaries, our mayor today, as well as our new chief of police, and representatives from the congressman's office and the sheriff's department, and many others, the fire department, the Stanislaus Consolidated Fire. And all of you who have come to pray to God for protection and in gratitude for His blessing upon us this past year and in the year to come. Our secure and peaceful social order changed irrevocably on September 11th, 2001. 4 months after those attacks in New York and Washington, St. Joseph's held our first annual Blue Mass. And by the grace of God, we continue to offer this Mass every year since then. It was in that year, in that time, just after 9/11, that we Americans realized how critically we all depend on our first responders, and to what degree of heroism these men and women are prepared to sacrifice their lives. On that day, September 11th, all of America watched as columns of blue-clad police and firefighters raced up the stairwells of those burning towers of the World Trade Center, knowing full well that they were entering their own tombs. They were doing so in order to save the lives of people they had never met. The Catholic Mass has two parts, and I'm going to reflect now on the scriptures in its connection with this phenomenon of what we saw on 9/11 and what we see day by day, week by week in the police, fire, and emergency departments of our country. And so the first of the readings we had from the Bible was from the Old Testament, from the book of Genesis, what's called the binding of Isaac, or the sacrifice of Isaac. It's a pivotal story in the Jewish faith. The sacrifice of Isaac. Abraham, the great patriarch of the Jewish people, followed God into the desert to establish a new people. I will make your descendants as numerous as the sands on the shores of the sea, God told Abraham. For 80 years, Abraham waited for the fulfillment of his promise. He waited for a son to be born to him to begin this great race. And no son was coming for many, many years. And then finally, Isaac was born of Abraham's wife, Sarah. And so finally he has the proof, the fulfillment of that promise, and God then instructs Abraham, take Isaac, your only son, your beloved son, and sacrifice him on a mountain that I will show you. Isaac is probably about 18 years old in the story, ready to get married and begin having children. He's just at that moment of fulfilling the promise. Abram is just ready to see all of his dreams come true, and God says, now sacrifice him. Abraham doesn't hesitate. He takes the knife and his son and heads up the hill. We know that God's angel stopped Abraham's hand before he could drive the knife into his son's throat. For God had seen Abraham's willingness to sacrifice what he held most precious in this, more than his very life, his son of the promise. He completely trusted in God. On 9/11, we Americans stood amazed to see those columns of police and fire personnel streaming into the burning trade towers, rushing to save their fellow citizens, ready to sacrifice what every man and woman holds most precious, their very lives. It had not even occurred to the average taxpayer watching TV that morning that hundreds of New York police and firefighters would not hesitate to die for people that they had never met. It just had not occurred to us until we saw this with our very eyes. The sacrifice implicit in the calling to be a first responder. How can a man overcome the natural instinct to preserve his own life? I think it comes down to faith in God. God who promises another life for those who are willing to trust him. My life, O God, is in your hands, as we heard in the psalm today. Our Stanislaus County emergency personnel risk their lives and effectively lay down their lives for those they do not know. And how do they do this? How do you do this? I think it can only be explained by faith in God. In someone who watches over your lives on earth and promises you a life after this one. Should you lose your life on earth, should it be compromised by grave illness or injury, God has another life for us. Those who lay down their lives, ultimately, whether we think about it consciously or not, lay down your lives for the love of others and the love of God, who watches over all of us. For Christians, the story of Father Abraham and his son Isaac foretells the greatest story ever told.